What's up, YouTube? My name is Alexander Medeiros. You may know me as Wi-Fi Gospel. Tonight, I'm going to be interviewing Ben, who you may know as Cleave To Antiquity.
What's
Ben is
up?
now currently an Orthodox catechumen, but before that, he was an associate pastor at a Protestant church and the fastest growing Protestant apologist on YouTube. So what changed? What changed? How did Ben go from trying to convert Orthodox Christians to becoming one himself? We're going to find out tonight. We're also going to talk about the joy and the struggles of being an inquirer and a catechumen and what you should do if you're considering becoming Orthodox yourself. Ben, thank you for joining me tonight. To honor the YouTube algorithm, we're just going to dive right into it. And I want to take it back to the very beginning. All right. The origin story of Cleave to Antiquity. Tell me, did you grow up in a Christian home? What was your early life like regarding faith?
Yeah, man. I grew up in Church of Christ originally. We were there for a little while, and then things got kind of weird for my family and that particular denomination. So we left, and we've been in non-denominational churches ever since then. My parents, when they were divorced, stopped going to church, but then I came back to church as an adult, and I went right back into a non-denominational church. It's what I knew. A friend of ours had actually invited me to go with him to church on one Sunday, and I'm like, this is what I'm missing. I need to go back. So, I went back, and the rest is history.
Now, Christ of Church, is there any particular like strange belief in those
Oh yeah,
circles?
oh yeah. The Church of Christ is very unique. They believe in like the great apostasy, and they have exclusivity claims of their own. I was too young to know any of this stuff, but our
Okay.
particular church was when I was very young, apparently was very, very cult-like. I don't remember any of this though. I just remember the Sunday school, like, oh, we're gonna sing songs. And it was like, just hanging out with other kids and singing songs. I didn't know anything about this stuff. So
Yeah.
most of I think my like formative years were in kind of non-denominational circles.
And so, do your parents still go to like a non-denominational church?
No, my dad does not. He goes to church when I take him to church, basically. My mom is not religious at all anymore.
And so they didn't like it wasn't a focal point of you growing up, but it was kind of just there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not in the direct family after the divorce. Pre-divorce, yeah, we would go every Sunday. After the divorce, it kind of fell to the wayside, but all of my other family members are, you know, pretty devout Protestant Christians, all non-denominationals and things like that.
So they know about your shenanigans on YouTube and how like did they know you were out there repping them?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we talk about
Okay.
it all the time.
So that must be an interesting switch that I'm sure you get tons of questions around the holidays.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this will be the first kind of Christmas back with them when we go to the Christmas party. So I'm interested to see how that'll pan out. But I don't know. I've always kind of been, I was the pastor in the family. So, I would
Yeah.
always talk theology and I would teach. That's kind of who I am. I like to teach. So I'm kind of taking a step back and doing a little bit of more of a learning role at this point, which is an interesting transition for me. But I mean, my family, I don't think they might have some questions, but it's not stuff that I would ever shy away from talking about. I feel like the questions that would get raised, I'd probably enjoy discussing
Yeah.
because that's part of the fun. It's like, oh, okay, great, yes, please ask me.
Yeah.
Stuff
So
would be
I
fun.
my family is like free grace theology,
Yeah.
and then I became a Calvinist, and now I'm inquiring into Orthodoxy, and those conversations never went well. So I was just curious on your end how those go.
I think it's a little different just because I was a pastor. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that they already were kind of like, okay, you're the guy that's saying grace, you're the guy that's doing, so it's more like, why did this guy who was, kind of like I don't know, viewed as like one of the spiritual heads of the family. You know what I
Right.
mean? Why did he make the decision he did? Well, they're going to take the answers that I give with more weight, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of your pastorate position, you were an associate pastor. You start with the church when it was founded?
Yeah, we planted that church.
Yeah, you planted the church, nice. And so you said, I know in another interview you said you still had a full-time job throughout while you were still an associate pastor.
Mhm.
But when did you know, like, I mean, obviously you were working, you started a family, but when did you know, like, I want to take this into that direction of becoming a pastor?
I think there was well, there's a lot of things I'm very grateful for in my previous church, in the non-denominational church in which I served. Grateful for the community, grateful for my old senior pastor, Rami. He was very formative in that entire process. We had a men's group, and we're good friends. This is like one of my best friends. We had a men's group that we would go to every Tuesday. Probably one of the best men's groups, like fellowship wise, that you could attend. It's very tight knit. Everybody really cares about one another. Even now, even though I'm not a part of the church, if I need something, I can call one of these guys. It's lifelong friendships. You know what I mean? I just had a
Yeah.
flood in my master bedroom not that long
Oh
ago,
man.
and I text my old senior pastor Rami. I'm like, hey, dude, I need like a wet vac. Like he's like, okay, I'm on a mission now. I'm gonna go find out who can get you this wet vac or whatever. And sure enough, I got
Nice.
one. We were able to take care of it, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
still super tight knit, but um, the church was planted out of that group, out of that men's group. So we were a part of a men's group of a much larger church, almost like a mega church. And we planted a small non-denominational church. And in this men's group, we have discussions or whatever. We talk theology. We go through books of the Bible, and we'll break it down verse by verse. We kind of have open dialogue and discussion, sometimes debate about what passages mean, so on and so forth. And a lot of the things that I would present in there revolve around church history. I'd be like, well, this is actually the interpretation by the church fathers. Let me present this to you. Ambrose believed this. This person believed this. Augustine said this about it, so on and so forth. And I think once he saw that I was super, I not only had the theological knowledge, but there are things you can see if you're looking at somebody who maybe is going to be a potential pastor. It's not about head knowledge, really.
Right.
That does play a part, but you got to like people. You have to be, you have to be somebody who actually loves people. So one of the things he says is like one of the ways he knew that I might have a good heart for it is I would spend time with people, um, often outside of church after the men's group, and would be giving them advice either in the parking lot or whatever. And I'd already run a mentorship program at the time where I mentor, young Christian men, and then we had other counselors that would mentor Christian women. We'd the women with the women, the men with the men kind of deal, like a small group Bible study type deal. Um, and I was already kind of running that and giving people advice, and I served as a crisis counselor and things like that. So all of these things kind of adding up, I just couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do with my life. It's like I want to spend the rest of my life talking about Jesus. Like the rest of this doesn't really matter too much. Like you work, you labor, you spend time with family. I love my family. You spend time with people, and all of that stuff is wonderful. But the only thing that's really never going to pass away is Jesus Christ and his kingdom. So I'd rather be an ant spending all of my days carrying little pebbles of gold to add to the throne of God rather than carrying little grains of sand as something that's going to be washed away when I die. So I don't know. That was kind of the mindset, and still is. That's why I still focus on talking about God even now. Even though I'm not in a pastoral role, um, more an evangelistic sense now. But yeah, that was kind of the thing. And then he approached me in the parking lot after one of these things, and he said, "Hey, had you ever thought of pastoral ministry?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually I have." And I had been talking to the wife about it, and she wasn't really at the point, because being a pastor's wife is very difficult and demanding. So
Yeah.
um, I said no initially, like I'm going to pray on this for a time. Not a no, not a hard no, but like yes, I have thought about it, but I'm not ready for it yet, kind of deal. So
Gotcha.
before I even entertained the thought seriously, I wanted to take some time, at least a year of preparation to prepare my wife, um, make sure she, had read through the scriptures, that kind of a thing, prepare my daughter, that kind of a thing, make sure they're prepared, understand, you know, basically what the role would entail, and then move forward with it. So that's kind of how that went down. And then shortly after that, maybe a year or two after that conversation, I was ordained as an associate pastor. was in seminary, that kind of thing. So,
Nice. And how long ago was that?
dude, I'm so bad with time.
Well, you started your YouTube channel what,
Maybe
2 years ago?
no, about a year ago. I was
Okay.
already an associate pastor for I think a year, maybe a little longer before that. So I was an associate pastor for maybe 2.5 years, maybe 3.
Okay. And now in your role as associate pastor, you had mentioned that uh being a pastor is more about your relationship with the people and feeding the flock of God rather than just head knowledge. So it seems like you were more hands on because some Protestant pastors end up kind of just falling to the doctrine side of things and just want to teach and preach, and they don't really get too hands on with the people, right? It doesn't seem like you were doing that. But how does that kind of translate into apologetics? Because it almost seems, in my experience, they're kind of opposite in a sense, right? Because one is more confrontational than the other.
I don't know. I think it's both because I taught an apologetics class at my church every Sunday. Uh, but then, I'd also go and I'd preach for the elderly at the nursing home. I think it's both, the obviously there's pieces missing, but one of the things I was very grateful for my old senior pastor was he always made sure that no matter how much you knew that you took time to spend time with the people, and he would always positively reinforce anything that you did that was interpersonal with somebody, whether it was you took time to go help. We had the hurricanes here in Florida. We had huge floods, and many people's houses were destroyed. So, our church, we were a working church, we'd go and serve the community, that kind of a thing, or feed the homeless, or maybe if there's somebody within the obviously make sure you take care of the congregation first. If there's anybody there that had a particular need, you go and you serve them. So I don't know. I think that was really, really well instilled by the leadership there. So as far as the interpersonal stuff goes, um, probably the best church in that regard that I had ever attended. As far as like actually like being involved interpersonally, that was probably the focal point. But the thing that I particularly added to the church, I think, was that theological aspect. Because in a non denominational context, what you're typically missing is any kind of catechism whatsoever. So
Yeah.
that was a role that I tried to fill. Like most people in a non denominational context, not just that church, and obviously they're a little more educated now. Uh, but at the beginning, coming out of a mega church, most people didn't even know what a Protestant was.
Yeah.
Didn't know what the solas were. You say, "Oh, you're Protestant." I'm a Christian. Like, what do you mean? What's a Protestant? What's a Protestant
Right.
Reformation? Martin Luther? You mean like Martin Luther King? Like, like these are the kind of things. So you have to kind of get them educated. So that was the thing that I think I offered. Um, but the interpersonal stuff, that is a prerequisite for stepping into any kind of pastoral ministry. I don't think you can be just a preacher. Maybe people see that from the outside, but what a lot of people don't see is what happens after Sunday when you get the call at
Yeah.
3 a.m. and you got to go over to somebody's house and talk down their suicidal kid. Oh, forgive me, I can't say that on the air, but you get the point.
All right. Yeah. No, it's interesting because so my grandfather was a pastor for about 40 years in a free grace, non-denominational type of church. And his church was kind of that way. And I don't know, how many churches are out there like this. I guess I'm just basing this off of my experience. But he was kind of the at arm's length preacher where it was just about teaching, it was just about doctrine. And so that's kind of where my question came from. Um, but now going into apologetics, how what made the transition from, like, teaching an apologetics course at your church, which how many people, like, would attend that?
Well, our church any given Sunday would be like 150, 200. So in my particular class, maybe 30 a Sunday.
Okay, that's a good class. That's big.
Yeah.
And then, was it just that you wanted to reach more people?
We did street evangelism. So I wanted people to be prepared
Okay.
for any kind of opposition, which really never came up too much. I mean, the only people that really gave any kind of pushback were like the Muslims that were already out there
Ah,
doing the same thing. So sometimes you'll have like Muslims or Jehovah's Witnesses that are already out there prepared to, they're like debating grandmas in the park. This is literally what these people do.
yeah.
But we would go out and we would say like, hey, we're here with a local church. Do you care if we pray for you? You know, what can we pray for you for? And we get their needs first, and then present them with, you know, talk about Jesus, that kind of thing. So that was kind of our strategy. And we would try to get them plugged into a local church. If they're not close to ours, we, you know, pull up a decent one in our opinion at the time and get them
Yeah.
plugged in there, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what we were already doing, but the theological knowledge just wasn't there. So, you know, we wanted to make sure that we got them trained up. And that way, you know, you've got most of the congregation is a little bit older. Like you have some people that are younger, but a lot of them are a little older. So the way that I would frame it is, what if your grandkid is watching some TikTok or something and they have a Muslim ask them this question, and now they are walking away from the faith because they don't know any better? Wouldn't it be better if you have the answer to that objection? You know what I mean? And so what I would do is I would take TikToks, I would take YouTube videos of these like Dawa guys or whatever, and then I break down their arguments, or like, you know, we do like Roman Catholics, or, you know, so on and so forth. And
So you
that's
were
kind of
doing
the way
like
we framed it.
real-time reaction videos in these classrooms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's funny, that's funny. And then it's funny that street evangelism does seem like a pipeline to apologetics because you're putting yourself out there.
yeah.
And then every now and again, like you said, you get pushback depending on your area, be different types of people. But then you get stunned on something or you don't know the answer and you're like, that's not a good feeling. Like I should be more prepared here, right?
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think with me that's happened one time out in the streets. But with the people that I've been out with, they'll say, I had a Muslim guy come up to me and say like this. I had no idea how to respond. And he handed me
Yeah.
a Quran. Like, I was like, okay, great. Like, all right,
Yeah.
I got to prep these guys a little better. One of them, I think,
That's
like the
cool.
one that I got kind of, I wasn't really stumped, but it was like I didn't like, my brain was like rebooting. It was like one of those situations. I forget what they said. I think it was something like, um, gosh, like I keep praying for, gosh, I forget what they said. I think they said, why pray for world peace? Like God's not going to answer a prayer for world peace or something. I forget what that was, but it was something like that. And I was like, it made me like think for a second. Then he was like, oh,
Yeah.
see you later. Bye. And like left.
Yeah.
But typically the conversations don't get that deep. Like you're just kind of walking them through like, hey, have you ever thought about what happens next? That's like basically the thing. Or like, you know, tell me about your life. Oh, you've got this
Yeah.
going on. Did you grow up a Christian? Do you go to church? You know, have you ever gone to church? You know, why not? You know, this is, and then give your
Okay.
testimony, that kind of thing.
So
So
were you guys preaching or you were just
now
approaching people with like maybe
we're
a
talking
gospel
to
tract
people.
or something? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We would give tracks, but we try to talk to them, chat with them.
Yeah. Nice. I uh I think it's very Protestant, right? Kind of the street evangelism thing. I love it, especially the street preaching portion. But after inquiring into Orthodoxy, I was wondering, like, I'm sure there had to have been some Orthodox priests or even saints who did this. And I
Sure.
don't have the names off the top of my head, but there is an interesting history of street evangelism, especially in Russia when Orthodoxy was kind of being persecuted, right? And there's a lot of guys who were just taking liturgy right to the street instead. Be like, fine, you don't want us to do it. We're just going to do it right in the street.
Right.
So it's interesting. I'd like to get
Yeah,
into that more.
I think the more there's this hesitation in, especially in the Western countries, especially in America, Protestant majority countries, there is this hesitation because a lot of the people that are Orthodox now are ex-Protestants. So they kind of look at like, oh, well, but you can't do that. It's like, it's too Protestant. I had Father Paul Trubenbach on my channel, and he was like, no, we kind of have to like out Protestant the Protestants in
I,
terms
I
of
remember
evangelism.
watching that. Yeah.
You know, so I think there is this knee-jerk reaction in the opposite direction. There's certainly a way that you can take it that is not humble at all. It's very prideful. And one of the examples was, we were out there at a event, and there was this Baptist group that was out there that was very fire and brimstone, and they're out there preaching with the signs that are like turn or burn, like you're, you know,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Bright
go to
neon yellow
hell.
shirts.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And they're out there with bullhorns, and this mom and her daughter come up to us. And we're out there the same day. It's just like a big like country music outdoor venue concert thing. Not like it was like a free like city thing, but we were out there walking around the outskirts, kind of talking to people. And this lady comes up. We're wearing church shirts, you know. So she comes up to us and is like, she's like, "Oh, you people are from the devil. You know, you're out here telling people, you know, they're gonna burn if they don't go to your particular whatever." And she's freaking out and she's yelling. She's like, "You made my daughter cry." We're like, "We're not those dudes." Like, and we pulled her aside. We talked and we, you know, we prayed with her. And then eventually she was like, you know, "Hey, can I get one of those like, you know, tracks and like, you know, card for your church?" Yeah, sure. So that actually ended up being a good thing. But
Yeah.
there is a way to do it that's in a very prideful way. And I feel like a lot of the guys that go out there, there's like a spirit about these people that go out there and do like the screaming at people in the street thing. It's like
Yeah.
they are venting their frustration and anger. It's not really about trying to save those people. I don't know too many people that really get saved from this screaming dude on the side of the road. Like there's a
Yeah.
difference. Like you can go out there and maybe like preach a sermon or something, but if there's a dude that's out there that's just like, "You people are all drinking alcohol. You're all going to burn because alcohol is from the devil. Don't you understand this?" Like it's like,
Yeah.
okay, who's listening to that guy? Like the people that are going to go up and talk to him, or the people that are going to want to troll the dude. Like
Right.
that's what's going to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I mean, not that you can't do it today, but it is a different time, right? Like, there used to be people who would go out in the street and preach, and thousands upon thousands of people would gather. I remember in Boston, because I'm in New England, and there's a park in Boston. I forget the name of it, but a preacher by the name of George Whitfield used to go out there, and he would just get up on like a little stand, and he would start preaching, and thousands of people would gather in this park to
Yeah.
listen to preach. It was just a different time.
People don't
Um,
walk around as much as they used to, dude.
yeah, and I
Like
think of like things like YouTube, and it seems like it's almost like the public, I mean, the modern day street preaching is YouTube and the internet. What do you think about that?
right. I think that's true. I think especially in the modern age, especially in the West, since we're so technologically advanced. I was just talking about this today with John Heers, Father Peter Heers' brother. After that conference, the Jay Dyer conference over in Palm Coast, we did a Supra at Neil's house from Dirt Poor Robbins. It's like a Georgian traditional feast. So I did a show talking to him about the Supra, and he was saying in these countries that are a little more impoverished, there's a little more stillness. You still understand the concept of going out and socializing with people, but there's a little more stillness. It's not in the West, we're very objective. It's a very Protestant way of thinking, especially if you were to like just think about penal substitutionary atonement. All right. It is a judicial, it's black and white. There is an objective. The objective is make your profession of faith, remain in the faith until you die. Or if you're once saved, always saved, just make your profession of faith. You're good. Like that's
Yeah.
it. So it's very black and white. It's I'm here, I'm here. There's no dallying in between. It's just I'm here, I'm here. This is the important thing. I've done this, I've done this. The rest of it is just extra. In the other view, right, it's the process is the important thing. The converse, like just to tie this back to socialization, the conversations you have with people, that is the important thing. It's
Yeah.
not the meal. It's not sitting there eating the dinner. It's not the fuel. It's communion. It's communion with one another. It's me getting to know you, Alexander. It's me getting to express to you things that I wouldn't normally talk about in another setting. It's me being still. I'm not rushing to get away from you because I need to send an email for work. I'm spending
Yeah.
time. It's me and you. We're real people. We're having an actual conversation about life and just enjoying time, enjoying a meal with a friend. This is something that I think we've lost in the West, and we don't understand how our theology actually outflows and affects the rest of our life. We're very objective. I leave my house now. You're talking about the internet. I leave my house. I go to the movies. I want to go see a movie. I've got my objective. I'm going to the movie. All of
Yeah.
the things that are along that process, those are just extra. That's just the stuff I have to do to accomplish my objective. Okay. It's I get in my car, I drive, I'm in the line, I'm waiting with other people to go see this movie. I'm let in, I see the movie, I return back home. Now, the way that it should be is the process is the important thing. You know, I'm driving, I'm taking in my surroundings. I'm looking at the beauty of my city. I'm looking at the needs of my city. I'm looking at people that are out there that I could be serving. I'm looking at God's creation. I see the sky. I see the clouds. This is all beautiful. I'm enjoying my journey there. I'm waiting in the line. I'm surrounded by people. What could I be doing in this time? It's not that I have to, but it's just I'm there. I'm present. I'm having conversations. I could have the most life-changing conversation of my life in the line to see the movie, right? I could maybe potentially be standing next to Mel Gibson. I would never know because I'm so objective focused. Or maybe somebody tells me they are the son of a CEO or something, and this opens up the next big job opportunity. Or somebody tells me a life story that I then use to overcome the next biggest obstacle that's coming to me in my life, or I make a lifelong friend. You never know. This is the difference. It is the journey that is important. It's not just the objective dialectic. And that's something that I think we've kind of lost a little bit.
Yeah. So bringing it back to the apologetic side of things, because that's the world I live in, right? That's how we've run across each other. I started seeing your videos. It was the shorts.
Mhm.
Um, I probably can't do a good imitation of it. I'm trying to think. Uh, but especially because I started inquiring into Orthodoxy and I was in all the discords and people would post it, right? And you
Yeah,
say,
it'd be
"Oh, look
like
at this guy."
I'd be like Roman Catholics. I'd be like Roman Catholics. Uh, if sola fide wasn't taught in the first 1,000 years of the church, why do we have quotes like this?
Yeah,
What do you think about this? Like that was kind of the short.
right.
Yeah.
And so then I followed you and I would see your stuff and I would see a debate every now and then. I think the last debate I saw was is this the last one you did? Was Trent Horn and Danny?
Oh, Trent Doherty and Danny.
Or Trent Doherty and Danny.
I think so. Maybe that might have been the last one I did.
Yeah. And so how do you go from teaching apologetics, doing street evangelism to now I'm going to be on YouTube and I'm going to be trying to debate Catholics and Orthodox? Like what why specifically Catholic and Orthodox? Like why not atheism or Mormonism and stuff like that?
Sure, that's a good question. So, I don't know. I'm kind of a people person. I love people, and I ran this mentorship program before I was even a pastor. And what we would do is I would debate the Muslims, I would debate the atheists, and then I would invite them. It's not just like I wasn't debating them just to get one over on them. I want to welcome them into the family. I want them to become a Christian. I want them to accept Jesus Christ. So what I would do is I'd say, look, if you're still on the fence after this, they reach out to me or something. I'd say, look, I'm going to take my time and I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to read with you a chapter of the Bible every single day, Monday through Friday. Do this with me for, a month and then see how you feel. Just, whatever. I'll take my time. Look, I'm going to show you I care, dude. I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to read the Bible with you every single day, Monday through Friday. And then, we'll do that. So I did that. And, that actually was relatively effective, especially with Muslims, I think they're kind of action oriented. So like not just giving them some kind of idea and letting it hang there. It's like, look, this is the next step is like come and join this mentorship program. It's me and maybe like I was doing it one-on-one for quite some time, but then we just had too many people. So I do like me and like a group of like 10, and then I'd have another counselor or somebody that would do it. And it's like, we had like multiple different groups at the end of it. And then I handed it off to somebody else when I stopped. I don't know if they're still doing it. They might be, but I did that for a while. But the questions that I would get back were questions about church history. This was when the Roman Catholic, Orthodox, apologetic scene was really starting to pop off and get a little more mainstream, where people were talking about it. This was maybe 2018 ish, and maybe 2017, 2018 ish. So this was like right when that was starting to kick off and become a little more public, and this is entering into the discourse. So I get these people coming to me and saying, look, I had this Roman Catholic guy give me this objection. What do I do with this? Like I just became convinced, Jesus Christ is my Lord, God, and Savior. But now you've got this Roman Catholic guy saying I got to be Catholic or I'm going to hell. So what do I do? So, I didn't have the answers at first. So I'm sitting
Yeah.
there. I'm like, I got to do research. And then eventually, I'd find the answers for them, or at least suitable ones that would at least assuage their, whatever they were thinking at the time. And then, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the research. So I started doing debates with these people too, because I was already doing debates with atheists and Muslims. Granted, this was on Discord, not on YouTube. But I was doing that for a while. And that's kind of where it started. Was I wanted to be able to address the concerns that my people had. And that's really where it stems from. And I think a lot of it, looking back, is like you see these people attacking your tradition, which was at the time just Protestantism broadly. I don't know why that's the mindset, but that is the mindset. Protestantism broadly. And you think of it really as like it's an attack on your family. So it's like you're attacking these people that I sweat for, I bled for, I spent my
Yeah.
time on, and now my concern is maybe they go become an atheist because now they were just an atheist. Maybe they go back and they're an atheist later,
Throw their hands up. Yeah.
which didn't end up happening, and probably wouldn't have happened. But that's the thought. You
Yeah.
think like, oh, like what's going on? Like I got to be able to defend these people. So you would take it like an attack on theology as like you're attacking my people. Now I gotta protect my peeps. So that's kind of where the mindset came from. But then as you continue to do your research and you continue to do these debates, which I don't know, I was debating at a pretty high level, like people that know their stuff. It's not like any like Joe Schmo. You start to get some nuanced arguments, and you got to do some nuanced research. And once you start doing that, some of those frameworks start to break down a little bit. And I think one of the frameworks that broke down first was real presence, and then after that was baptismal regeneration. Because in a non-denominational context, typically you don't believe those two things. So those were the first two to go. Yeah, those were the first two to go, and then that moves on into other things.
Gotcha. And now, when did Orthodoxy get on your map? I mean, you're studying Catholicism, but like I was a Calvinist, right? Calvinism coming out of the Reformation. I would study Catholicism, but it never even crossed my mind to look at Orthodoxy. I didn't know anybody in real life who was Orthodox. And it wasn't until I got online, and I mean, my focus was debating atheists. So the only time I ran across Orthodoxy was looking up atheist debates and running across someone like Jay Dyer. And I was like, oh, these guys exist. So how was that experience for you?
I think just being active in the online space, it was kind of always both from that time forward, like 2017, 2018. It was both, I think. Because you'd get the online debaters come into your server or something that want to debate people. So,
Gotcha.
but I also live in a very Orthodox area. My area is very Greek.
Really?
So I don't want to dox my city, but it's
No, you're fine.
It's a pretty Greek town.
I live in there's like probably 10 Orthodox churches if you count, the schismatics as well, within like 30 minutes from me. So I live in a very Orthodox area compared to most too. Like I was even considering moving to North Carolina, and I was looking, and it's like there's like two churches and they're both an hour from where I would move. So I was like, it's very different. But I know one guy to this day in real life who was Orthodox before I started inquiring, and he became a rabid atheist, and we would talk on Facebook and stuff, and that's how I knew him. But yeah, I never really knew in person that much. But so once you're online, you have these Discord servers, you're doing these mentorships. I've heard you say before in other interviews, you were approached by Redeemed Zoomer, who you had some relationship with online, and he said, hey man, you should start a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, I was in his server. I got banned from that server twice.
Before inquiring?
Yeah. Before inquiring.
Okay.
I was banned from that server twice. There was his server is very interesting. I love Richard, by the way. He's a good guy. So nothing against him. He doesn't run that Discord, by the way. It's like just mods.
Okay.
So he had Orthodox and Roman Catholic mods almost exclusively. I don't know why, but his whole server ended up being like a funnel for people to convert into Roman Catholicism and Orthodoxy. But
That's
that's because of the power structure he had. I let him know about this, but I got banned. I was debating in there with Orthodox guys that really couldn't handle the objections that I was bringing up. I don't know. I was pretty creative, and yeah, I challenged them to a debate. I'm good with rhetoric, so yeah, I challenged them to a debate. I'd make sure people were watching. I'd go in there and I'd have my slam dunk questions already lined up, and these are Joe Schmoes. So, you go in there, you debate like a Discord mod or something, he crashes out, he bans you immediately. So that's what
yeah.
happened to me the first time. The second time I came back and somebody was like, there's a guy that's thinking about unaliving himself at everyone. Make sure you message him with something encouraging. And I was like, dude, I serve as a crisis counselor. Do not do that. You're an idiot. Like, don't do that. Don't have random weirdos on Discord message a guy that's unstable. Like, send them to somebody that you trust or whatever, like something like that, or like have them message me. And they're like, how dare you challenge my authority? You're banned again. And RZ was like, sorry, dude. They just think you're too divisive. You got to go. I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's a Discord server. Who cares? I had been banned from every single Orthodox Discord server I've ever joined, by the way. I was banned from, I got banned from Jay's server. He doesn't remember this, but I had a debate with him when I was on Discord back in the day. It wasn't really a debate. It was like a 5-minute conversation, and I got booted. I got banned from Orthodox Meme Squad. I got banned from one of the sister servers of that. There's another one that was a Kursk Root Lodge or something. I got banned from that one. All the main Orthodox servers I was banned from. The Roman Catholic servers wouldn't even let me in. Some of them, like, but it was, it was a fun time. That was a fun period. But Discord became a different platform. Now it's just kind of like brain rot and weirdness and feds and all sorts of other like weird stuff. So I don't even mess with it anymore.
Yeah, all social media apps end up kind of becoming that, right? The early stages are kind of fun, wild, wild west, and things change, advertisers come in, etc. It's a different world now. But I mean, dude, Discord is it's what helped me a lot inquiring into Orthodoxy and just hearing the other side. So I'm very appreciative for my people over in Discord, especially Jim Bob's Discord. It's a great server. So now you're on YouTube, you're making videos pretty consistently, which you were just using a laptop, right?
I was using my phone.
Yeah, your phone. This is awesome because especially like so many people want to create content. And they'll go out and they'll spend, $1,000, $2,000 on cameras and desktops, and then they'll make 3 videos over 6 months, and it's like that's all I do. But I love the just the hustle. I mean, in general, to be able to just turn the phone on, record something, post it, and start gaining a following like that. That was really cool.
Yeah, but I'm also kind of different. I've had training, so like I've got an SEO background, so I kind of already know
Oh,
what to do. I've been Google AdWords certified. I've been Bing Ad certified. I was a operations manager for Microsoft advertising, so I've got an advertising background. I know about search engine optimization, so I already kind of knew the basics of what to do, like as far
yeah.
as how to optimize titles, descriptions, tags, hashtags. Thumbnails I picked up later. That was something new. But that was relatively easy once you start using Canva and you learn some of the schemes or whatever. My thumbnails still are not the best. I could upgrade my thumbnail game, I think. Who I think has a good thumbnail game is Christian Wagner. I like that scheme there, but now all the Catholic channels use it because they use the same thumbnail guy. But I like that
I
scheme.
gotcha.
I think it looks nice. But yeah, no, I've got an SEO background. I think if somebody's watching this and they really want to like just start, camera and stuff that you're using doesn't really matter at first. What really matters is your thumbnail, your title, and the metadata that's in your description tags and hashtags, right? Like you don't need to worry too much about quality until later. Like all of this stuff, this wasn't stuff I went out of my way to get. This was stuff that I set a goal publicly on YouTube and then my supporters helped me get it. So like the laptop I didn't have before. The camera I didn't have, the microphone I didn't have. So people are pretty, like, I'm very grateful to, like, that's amazing. First off, the people are that generous, but people really care. People care about Christ. And if they feel like you're serving Christ in a way that's going to bring other people to Christ, they will give very, very generously, especially if they know exactly where it's going. It's
Yeah.
like, look, I've got this goal. I'm gonna be very transparent. I want the laptop to stream, the camera to stream, the microphone to stream, and then people assisted. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool. And, just content in general, it's how knowledgeable you are. Do you have an opinion that maybe nobody else has? Can you back up what you're saying? Like, you'll see a Jay Dyer video, it'll be a clip channel, and it'll just be like a picture of Jay Dyer and audio from an X space, and it'll have, 60,000 views. And it's like, while all of the other stuff is important, the content in what you're saying is the most important part.
Mm, no, not at
No?
first. At first, yes, but later on, no. Like where Jay's at right now. Once you already have your dedicated following, the clips channels are literally just copying and pasting stuff. So the content really isn't what's super important. It's the catchy tagline and the title and the thumbnail that's driving the traffic, plus the existing brand power that Jay has. Right. So once you kind of have your brand set, then you can be a little more flexible with the content. Like for guys like me with a like like a small to mid size channel, like I'd consider it maybe mid size, like smaller end of mid size. Um, it still matters, like content matters, but maybe not as much as it would if I had like 1,000 subscribers or like 2,000 subscribers. Then it
So
really
what
matters.
what about the Sam Sulek effect?
What do you mean by that?
So Sam Sulek, for those who don't know, is a bodybuilder. I just looked up his He's got 7 million followers on Instagram. That's wild. But he basically posted super low quality content in the sense of like it wasn't the right angle, it wasn't scripted, like all of the stuff every YouTube guru on YouTube who tells you what to do. He did none of it. But what he was saying, his opinions, the controversy surrounding him is what blew him up. That's kind of the idea I was getting at, where it's like you don't need like for you your videos on your phone. I can't imagine they were highly produced, right? I don't know if
No,
I've seen the old ones, but yeah. So it's
no,
like
not at all.
not. I guess it's both at the beginning because, like you said, you need to get the person there, but then they need to stay. Otherwise, YouTube's not going to do anything for you.
The thing that really grew my channel was collabs. I mean, you got to be
Yeah.
social. So Sam's right. It's not so much about the quality of the content, it's more about what you do with it. And yeah, controversy could be one thing that makes you relevant. Like if I didn't care, like right now I'm being very intentional. So I'm trying to be extremely intentional with what I put out there. I want to make sure I'm not overstepping my bounds too much. I want to make sure that I'm not alienating half of the Orthodox community, so on and so forth. Granted, I have strong opinions. So if I'm pressed on some of this stuff, I'm going to answer honestly. But I'm not going out there. I'm not going to make videos that say like Pope Respecter is a retard. Here's why. Like I'm not doing that kind of stuff right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I wanted to grow very quickly, I would make videos and I would say, especially if I wasn't, because kind of where I'm at now is like, I just want to be a good son of the church. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm being a little more low key than I was.
Right.
Some people might not see that, but I'm being much more low key than I was. I was very, very aggressive.
Yeah.
So like if you wanted to grow quick, Pope Respecter really doesn't like me on X right now. If I really wanted to grow really quickly, start a public beef with the guy, make videos like the rise and fall of Pope Respecter or Pope
Yeah.
Respecter's
Yeah.
son is Orthodox, like just stuff like that that would get him to respond,
Yeah.
and he would respond to me, and that would grow the channel, things like that. Like, let me think of an individual I did this with. I did this with Jay, when we had our back and forth. I made several response videos there. Who else did I do this with? I did this with Eric from Catholic Christian. I went on his channel and we had a public debate on Vatican II.
Oh man, I've seen some of those videos
Yeah. Then
in the
he
back
came
and
on
forth.
mine. I went
He's a
back and
really aggressive guy too.
uh not anymore. He's pretty chill now. He was a little
Am I
more.
thinking of the right guy?
I don't think you are. He's a Roman Catholic guy with 20K subs.
Wait, who's the guy? Maybe I'm thinking of a different guy. His name's like Festus or something.
I don't know, maybe. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I go back and forth with him, so on and so forth. Octavian says,
Yeah.
someone replies on
Different
your
guy.
post and said his son is not ortho. Yeah, of course he's gonna say that.
Oh no, you know who?
The moment I said it, Pope Respecter called me a PDF file immediately. Immediately.
Wow.
I said his adult son. You don't react that emotionally to something that's not true. So it's like he calls me a PDF file, and I'm just kind of like, whatever. Like, I know it's not true, so I'm not going to react in a super huge emotional way. His is like immediate blasting crash out. He commented 5 times back to back. As soon as I pointed this out, he blocked me, unblocked me, blocked me again, unblocked me, sent a comment, blocked me again, unblocked me. So it's like, if you're reacting that wildly to it, there's truth to the accusation. And this has been brought up in the past. And when it was brought up in the past, it was a big deal. So anyway, that's just kind of my take. Again,
Yeah.
God bless that guy. I don't have anything personally against him. It's just kind of like, he's a funny guy, fun guy to go back and forth with on X, because he's a little bit of a crash out. But again, if you wanted to grow a platform, that's how you could do it on YouTube. You could, obviously you want to do it moral. So, take that with a grain of salt. There are also ways that you can get response videos. The negative criticism that you get on YouTube actually helps grow your channel. So a lot of the times I would do response videos, and I would intentionally make them relatively short. So most of my videos were intentionally relatively short so people could clip them up. Sometimes people are not going to watch an hour or 2 hour long video, right?
Yeah.
I would make videos with the intention of getting a reaction video from someone else, potentially. I don't solicit them, but I'd be like calling out Joe Heschmeyer or whatever. This one argument makes Joe Heschmeyer's brain melt or something. Like, something stupid. It's like calling him out by name, tag him. You're clipping like a little portion of his video, tossing something that's kind of, you're softballing a little bit. You want them to respond. And then you hit them with the heavy stuff after. Like, that's kind of like, that's kind of the strat. You want people to respond to your stuff, and then you hit them with the more intellectual piece once you actually have their attention. And then from there, it may turn into a debate, it may not. So that's kind of like that's the strat. It's collabs, it's debates, it's back and forths. It's sometimes you can have like a friendly, I've done friendly like back and forths. Like, I've talked to them and I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a response video to this. You do one of mine, because we have good rapport and we can go back and forth and be a little,
Yeah.
we can throw our jabs in and we know we're still going to be buddies. That's me and Eric, Catholic Christian. We did that a couple of times. And he's like, I was going to make this thumbnail, but it's too mean. I'm like, dude, just go all out, bro. I don't care. So he sends me this like AI thing. It was like me, like 350 pounds. Like, it was like big fat liar or something. I was like, that's awesome. He's like, no, it's too much. I can't do it. I'm like, dude, that would have been good. So, but anyway.
Yeah. And so we've been going for about 50 minutes now. So you don't need to get into kind of all the details. I know you've talked about it a bunch, about how you've converted to Orthodoxy. You are a catechumen now, right? How long were you inquiring for?
Well, I'm about to be received as a catechumen
Okay.
in the jurisdiction that I'm in, which I don't know if I want to give that out public, because some people are weird about that stuff. But typically you wait a couple of months before you're received as a catechumen. But I go to the catechumen classes already. Gotcha. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And I guess some things I want to touch on are like, you had to give up a lot in this process, right? Like, the Protestant apologist landscape is an interesting one. There are a couple guys who are kind of seen at the top, maybe redeemed Zoomer. I mean, I don't know too much about his history. I know he did apologetics and then he didn't, and now he kind of is again. But then also Gavin Ortland seems to be thrown around a lot as the guy, right? There was a recent interview that Jay Dyer did with someone on Steve Crowder's team, Gerald.
Yeah.
And they mentioned Gavin Ortland, but they really couldn't throw out any other name. So if you're good and you're popular in that space, there's a lot of room for growth. because there's tons of Protestants, especially in America and online, who are really hungry for that sort of person to defend the faith for them, to give them a reason not to convert to Catholicism or Orthodoxy. So if you would have stayed in that lane, I mean, there was massive opportunity for you there. So you kind of had to, and that's like, people are gonna be like, oh, well, of course, if it's the truth, then of course give it up. And yes, but in real time, I'm sure that's a thought in your head. Like, we all have temptations, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, this is this thing, success is nice. Do I really want to give this up? Was that ever like a contention in your head?
Oh, for sure. It's probably the biggest thing. I mean, well, maybe not the biggest thing, but it's a huge part. I had a lot of stuff going on in the background. I was about to get on shows with millions of subscribers.
Yeah.
I was DMing back and forth with Wes Hoff. I was, having multiple different conversations like that with big name collabs. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you can't let that hold you back. I mean, especially, when you're 100% sure, it's like, dude, none of this stuff matters at the end of the day if it's at the cost of your soul.
Yeah.
Which towards the end of it, that's kind of what it was like. It's like, dude, I'm like killing my soul at this point. You know what I mean? I think the real turning point was towards the end, what a lot of people don't really see, because they just see he announced it when he announced it, but he didn't announce it before he announced it. So he should have announced it before he announced it, but that would have been pushed back infinite ad
Yeah.
infinitum. But anyway, um, the real turning point for me, I think, because I had already stopped doing Protestant specific apologetics. People don't realize all of my collabs that I did after that point were just talking about the state of Protestant apologetics without actually giving arguments defending it, or going on and talking about topical stuff, or I'm talking about Roman Catholicism, so on and so forth. The one that pushed the line where I was like, I don't like where this is going, was the one that I did with Gospel Simplicity Austin. So the way that I pitched it to him was, I'm going to give an argument against the Roman Catholic canon. I wasn't supposed to be defending the Protestant canon. I don't know what changed, but when I went on that show, he made the title defending the Protestant canon, Protestant apologist, ABC Protestant, Protestant, Protestant. And I messaged him and I said, hey, can you change the title to, debunking the Roman Catholic canon or something? But that one
Yeah.
towed the line, because I was trying to work. He would ask me Protestant specific questions, and I'm like, this is a little too dicey for me. So I try to answer him, well, from the Protestant perspective. And then that whole interview just didn't sit right with me. And I'm like, you know what? At that point, I'm like just about fully convinced. I need like one or two more conversations, and I'm just about fully convinced. And then the moment I'm fully convinced, I'm just ripping the band-aid. That was the last
Yeah.
interview I did. And some were published after that. I had shot with Miles from Canon and Creed, we're still friendly, by the way.
Yeah.
Like a month prior to that or something. But again, that was like the state of Protestant apologetics, where I just basically said,
Mhm.
yeah, all the Protestant apologists suck. That was like, that was the context of, oh, he's pretending, it's like, no, I'm just saying, like, Protestant apologetics sucks right now. That's why I do well.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the point I was like, dude, I just got to rip the band-aid off. So as soon as I was fully convinced, I'm like, I'm not doing this whole thing where I'm gonna like soften the blow optics wise. I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off. I'd already been speaking to Father Peter here, so I said, hey, let me just come on your show. I'll rip the band-aid. And then the reason I went on to his show to do that was, well, coming from my background, I had a lot of people in my community that supported me, right? I wanted at least some kind of way for me to have people on the Orthodox side that could offer some kind of support as well, because I knew it was going to be hard. So I'm like, if
Yeah.
I do it on Father Peter Here's channel, well, then, I have the opportunity maybe to meet more Orthodox people, because they'll be able to see it, and then I'll have more community and it'll suck a little less. And it worked out fine. I
Yeah.
had other Orthodox people that reached out to me, and I was able to talk to them. And when things sucked during the conversion process, I was able to ask them questions or say, like, hey, dude, I'm going through this. This sucks. And they were able to help me out. So, and then vice versa, the biggest thing that was awesome was, after that interview, I had several pastors reach out to me that were interested in Orthodoxy. And they were like, dude, like, you gave up all this stuff, I've been holding this off because I've got a whole, like, this is my family business. And my dad was a pastor, so on and so forth. And I'm going to
Yeah.
inherit the church or whatever. And, I couldn't, I didn't have the courage to take this bold stand for Christ and his church and step away. But I'm convinced Orthodoxy is the truth. But you came out here and you just gave up all this stuff. So let me reach out to you and say, how did you do it? And you like survived. Like you weren't like relegated to the history bin.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I had a lot of people reach out like that. For maybe the first month, I think every day I was getting DMs from people that were interested in Orthodoxy. So I still get them, not to the same, like, they were like back to back to back to back DMs.
Wow.
People were reaching out.
I can see that.
I had a chat with Father Hirsch not that long ago, and he's like, have you had like, how many people have like reached out? I'm like, too many to count, dude. He's like, oh well, what are the, like, what are the reasonings? Like, what's the, like, what are they saying? Like, I'm just gonna send you screenshots. I sent him like a fat list of, cropping out the name, obviously, and like personal stuff, but I sent him like a fat list of the screenshots. He's like, wow, glory to God, like that's awesome, and it's not me. It's just people see like, oh, like he didn't die.
Yeah. And it's an especially humbling experience for a pastor because Orthodoxy, there's a lot of accountability. And you don't just get to, because you've been a pastor for 20 years, even, you don't get to just come into the church and start doing the same thing. It's a long process if you ever want to be in the ministry again. Now I'm obviously just an inquirer. I've been inquiring for a long time, like 6 months probably. And people may or may not know my reasons for that, but that's for another time. Now, as far as like your beliefs go towards Protestantism, and I'm not even sure the official stances or anything. I'm still learning a ton, but what do you see Protestantism as now that you're about to be a catechumen?
What do you mean?
So, do you think that would you call Protestantism Christian?
In the fullest extent of the word, no. But I mean, they are, to some degree. I think if you were to say like people who say that they are following Christ and are truly intending to follow Christ, yes. If you were to say people who have the sacraments that are engaged in, the fullness of the life of the church, no. So I guess it depends on what you mean by that. If you're saying Christian, as in the Christians that were at Antioch when the term was first coined, from that sense, I mean, there's only one group of them. That's the Orthodox.
Yeah. So like when it comes to like Mormonism, right? Like when a Mormon says, I'm 18, I'm a missionary, I've had this feeling, right? This burning in my bosom. I prayed the prayer and it's, God revealed to me that this is the truth. And maybe they even had like a crazy conversion. Maybe they went, a little bit crazy in high school or something, partied, that's not too many Mormons, but I'm sure it happens. And then they come back to the faith and they have this like seemingly spiritual experience. Would you call that kind of like a false experience in that case, like the Mormon case?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then, because this is something I struggled with a lot, and I don't really struggle with it anymore, but I'm still very interested in it because,
I mean,
like,
it's
as a
probably real.
Protestant,
It's probably a demon, though.
right? And I have similar thoughts, and but then I look at, like, for me personally, I had,
I was going to say, let me correct that, though, because anybody watching this, I'm not saying every Protestant experience is similar to
yeah,
that in Mormonism.
right.
God can
That's where I'm
operate
getting.
outside of the church. There are miracles that happen outside of the church. This happens all the time. I've had my ACL healed as a Protestant. I don't think that was a demon healing my ACL. But when we say that there's no salvation outside of the church, what we mean by that is there's no valid sacraments outside of the Orthodox Church. Can you be
Right.
healed? God's going to meet you where you're at, right? But obviously, you look at the fruits of that miracle. What does it do, right? Is it driving you further into prelest? Is it giving you delusions? Like Roman Catholic miracles, Saint Catherine of Siena sees Jesus appearing before her and he hands her a ring, says she's the most special girl in the whole world. I'm going to marry you, you beautiful nun, and hands her a ring made of his own foreskin. Is that a genuine miracle or is that a demonic delusion, prelest? I mean, you can kind of see where I'm getting at here. And you see a lot of the
Yeah.
same stuff with a lot of the post Vatican II canonized saints. A lot of these people, they made them doctors of the church. Like Hildegard von Bingen has like a whole treatise on her visions, and some of the things that she teaches are a little wacky, like cast like a magic spell on a sapphire, get a guy to drink it, and he'll fall out of love with you. That kind of stuff. Um, but the point that I'm getting at is you kind of examine the fruits, right? We know for sure that some of the miracles within the Orthodox Church are from God, whereas outside we can speculate. Like we can speculate whether or not that is actually God working there. There's no
Gotcha.
there's no guardrails. The guardrails are the
Mhm.
teachings of the church. The guardrails are the tradition. The guard the guardrails is monastic life. The guardrails is your spiritual father who can check your experience to see if it's pre-last or if it is a genuine encounter with the living God. Now, that doesn't mean God doesn't operate outside of the church at all. It doesn't mean that absolutely nobody outside of the church ever is going to be saved. In fact, we pray for the dead. We pray for those that are outside of the
Yeah.
church. But normatively, salvation is found only within the Orthodox Church because we have valid sacraments.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly praying for the dead. It seems very weird as a Protestant, but just because you mentioned it, I find it so like I find joy in it in the
Yeah,
sense of like you felt very powerless when you know someone who you loved and you knew like they didn't care about Jesus. At least from your experience with them. And you kind of feel powerless. Like what do I do? They're dead. I just feel sad, right?
yeah,
And like not saying just because you pray for them, they're, gonna be with Jesus now or something, but there's at least something you can do that
yeah,
like your father's gonna hear you, you know?
right.
Um, but now I just want to say, because like personally, my come to Jesus moment was I when I was in high school, man, all I cared about was smoking weed, partying, girls, right? Um, I wanted to like move to Thailand and go crazy. And I had no care for anything religious. My whole family was Jehovah's Witness and non-denominational, and they always told me to come to church. I was like, not for me. And then I had an experience on acid that, like, long story short, I I was in my friend's basement. I felt like God was upstairs. He was mad at me. I was going to hell, and there was nothing I could do about it. And then when I came out of it, I was like, I need to. I'm either gonna go one way here. I'm either just gonna nothing matters, nothing's real, go crazy, or this is true, and I'm gonna follow Jesus. And so, like, inquiring into Orthodoxy and up in Discord till 2 a.m. talking to a bunch of Orthodox guys, just kind of working through this stuff. And it's like looking back, I'm like, man, like, were these experiences real? Were they pushing me towards the truth? Because my life genuinely changed after that. I
Yeah,
sought Christ. I loved Christ. I wanted to know more and more about God. I wanted to pray. I wanted to um, follow his commandments. Like all these good things happened. I went from, wanting to chase every girl I saw to, I got married at 20 years old and started a family. So it was tough, like, working through those things, but I think the tougher part is then looking at the people you love and saying, "Man, are their experiences real?" Because, like, for me, I'm okay if they weren't real. Like, no sweat off my back in a sense, like, after I worked through it. But then it's kind of harder looking at the people you love and be like, "Man," like, do you get what I'm trying to get at here?
yeah. Who's to say that they weren't real though? Like
Yeah.
God, God can meet you where you're at. Ultimately, that is the hopelessness of Protestantism, though. Like you don't have those guardrails to tell whether or not this was a real experience. So ultimately, it's up
Yeah.
to you to speculate after that. The best thing to do is to leave that in the hands of God and to say, look, if it is within God's will, he will work on these people and he has worked on these people. And obviously he does to some extent and maybe some way that is outside of the fullness of the faith. Whether that's moral formation, whether that's involving them in a community, these are all very good things. Whether that is, imparting on them leadership skills, imparting on them chastity, imparting on them, uh, different moral virtues, so on and so forth. Um, you can kind of see God work on people where they're at to lead them towards their ultimate destination. But it's not up to you to see what that ultimate destination is, whether he's guiding them towards the Orthodox Church or whether something is happening that is actually just a demon driving them into prelest because they're having some kind of Pentecostal seizure and they're, this is going to then drive them to start a cult in Africa where they're all going to drink a bunch of Kool-Aid. You
Yeah.
know, that is the hopelessness of Protestantism. You don't have the guardrails, so you're not going to be able to tell. Ultimately, I mean, you just leave that up to God at that point. But that's the beauty of Orthodoxy is that even if you, I mean, because you're never going to find that out in this life, you just trust that was all of your entire experience within Protestantism some kind of like big demonic delusion? Obviously not, because you're where you're at now. One of the things my priest says is he says he will not allow any catechumen to be baptized or chrismated until they can tell them two good things that they gained from their experience within their previous faith tradition. So whether it's
Wow.
Protestantism or
That's
whatever.
interesting. Yeah.
So it's like at least two things. So I mean, I think that's kind of easy for me though. Like, it's not to say that those churches are valid, but it's to say that
Yeah.
even Father Paul Trubenbach says that there's a lot of things that he thinks people got good out of even a cult as insidious as Mormonism. You know,
Yeah.
there's still things that they're taught, such as good moral values in some areas.
Yeah. Family structure.
Yeah, to an extent, depending.
Yeah, depending on what kind of.
At least the importance of staying close to the family, maybe a little too close sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get the point. To a lesser degree. But if you want the fullness of the faith, right? You come to the Orthodox Church. This is the genuine faith. This is the fullness. You're receiving the sacraments, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like remaining an inquirer for the rest of your life, maybe a little less than an inquirer, right? Like you don't have the sacraments. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like when you're a catechumen, you're given an Orthodox burial, so on and so forth. But I mean, if you're outside of the church, I think there's a difference between somebody in a state of like willful rejection and then somebody who's maybe, I don't even want to go that deep into it. Not every experience that you've had outside of that is not genuine. I know I've experienced genuine miracles outside as well. So, and I think that's the confusion that people get, because within Protestantism, it's this dialectic. It's black or white. Like I said to you earlier, it's just the destination. That's it. It's all tied up into the destination. The rest of this is just extra that is included in the destination. So when you say there's no salvation outside of the Orthodox Church, meaning there's no sacraments outside of the Orthodox Church, what the Protestant hears is everything I've ever heard or learned or experienced is fake. And this is all like I'm coming out of the Matrix and I'm taking a pill and now I'm in the real world. And, I'm seeing things for as they really are or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not quite it. The purpose is the journey, right? All of this stuff matters. All of this is formative.
It's such a different mindset than the product, like especially with apologetics, it's hand in hand with evangelism, at least if you're doing it the right way. And that was like the goal, is just not just say this prayer, but have true faith. But it's still like this one-time thing.
Yeah.
And so getting out of that mindset is it's really hard, because as a Protestant, you think getting out of that mindset is actually giving up the gospel.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think for me, even as a Protestant, though, being involved in apologetics so much, you see the once saved, always saved stuff is obviously fake. So once you get past that, it's a little easier. I think for me, like a light bulb went off in my head when I was teaching apologetics, and I'm like, well, sola fide, right? So I'm teaching sola fide, and I'm like, well, genuine faith is evident by good works, but good works also influence your faith, so it's cyclical. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm teaching synergism.
Yeah.
I'm teaching. Wait a minute here. Wait a minute here. There's something that's a little off. I'm teaching infused righteousness rather than imputed at the moment. I'm like, yeah, maybe there's something off about my framework. So, I don't know. I think once you explain it like that, because you think about justification by faith alone, people get confused by the terminology. You really have to take it a step further than that. You can't do like sola fide debates. The debate is really, is it imputed righteousness or infused? And the easiest way to explain this to somebody, if you're talking to like a family member or something, would be like, well, yeah, faith saves. What boosts up your faith? Your good works. It's okay. So you're reading the Bible. Is that going to help your faith? You're going to church services. Is that going to help your faith? What happens when you stop going to church services? Right?
Yeah, and lose faith. Yeah.
Yeah, you start to lose faith. What happens like 2 week amount of time? Where were you at with your faith?
I mean, it's not terrible, but it's you start reading less, start praying less.
Sure. What about a month?
Yeah, start not thinking about the people obviously at the church, start not thinking about God as much.
And what about like 4 months?
Yeah, yeah, now you're in some dangerous territory. Now it's gotta
Yeah.
be really hard to keep your eyes on the path.
Yeah. So the way that I illustrated it for people was it's like you're experiencing the sun's rays, your plant, right? You're this little sprout of a tree. And that that I did this illustration on purpose is like that tree will produce fruits, right? Or whatever. So you have the sun's rays, you have the rain. This is all God's grace, right? When you act in opposition to God's will, you're cutting yourself off from that grace. The little dome comes up. So, the longer that dome is up, the less grace. What happens to the plant? The more wilted, right? So I think it's a helpful illustration for people to understand. But ultimately, what that leads into is synergism. It leads into infused righteousness rather than imputed. So it's like already like subconsciously teaching theosis my Protestant church without
Mm.
realizing that that's what I'm really teaching. So kind of interesting tidbit there.
Last thing I wanted to talk about was, accountability in Orthodoxy versus Protestantism and the struggles that emerge from that accountability. So, as a pastor, I'm sure you sought out accountability, you sought out these guardrails, but when you're kind of just a layperson at the church, it's harder to seek these things. Or the reason you became a pastor is because you were a person who did seek these things. Maybe is a better way of putting it. But confession, right? Like at least in America, American Protestantism, the idea is kind of like this freedom thing of I don't need another man to confess to. Like I just go straight to God because I have the freedom to. And I would say like there is that freedom, right, within Orthodoxy. But there's also this, I mean, even the Bible says to confess your sins to one another. And then my understanding of that is like, okay, well, what happens in history when this happens? Okay, you confess your sins to one another. Who are you confessing your sins to? Well, the best person to do that is your spiritual father, the priest, right? The person looking over your soul. And I think it probably comes out of that. But in my experience, like whether it's business, whether it's uh anything, a diet, fitness, when you have somebody else holding you accountable, just you uttering the words, "Oh, I failed" to somebody else, knowing you have to give an account, helps you. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a Protestant, I confessed to my friend. I had
Yeah,
one buddy that I trusted that I would confess my sins to, and we would keep each other accountable. So I think that's a good practice. I always kind of taught that anyway,
yeah,
because the way that I would frame it more as from a Protestant perspective was, it's really for healing. It heals your soul. So even for Protestants, I think it's a good practice. I think it's a good practice for everybody, but within the Orthodox Church, you have the guardrails. Like not necessarily even the guardrails of like, oh, my secret might get out or something, which is ultimately just superficial because I mean
yeah,
you sinned. Um, and you might face some consequences for your sin. But then you kind of have to be okay with that to an extent.
yeah,
But the um it's a little different. You have the guardrails there, you have the confirmation that God has forgiven you for your sins. Because the priest is standing there giving you that reminder from the scriptures that God is forgiving you, because you have confessed them and you're repentant. And then if you're not, maybe your priest will call you out on that. So you have the guardrails. It's the entire purpose of the system, and you don't have that in Protestantism. You just kind of have to guess. Like, well,
yeah,
now it's an operation of it's an exercise in fruit checking. Now I check my fruits myself, and then ultimately my own opinion of my own spiritual state is kind of the arbiter of where I'm at right now. I don't have to do that in Orthodoxy. You have somebody who's like, no, dude, you're being an idiot. you're gooning every day, like you're in a bad spot, you're, it's spiritually dangerous. You might end
Yeah.
up, damning your soul if you continue in that way. And you have somebody to hold you accountable or something, whatever the case may be. I say that because it's like the most common male thing. It's like, oh, dude,
Right.
I failed, bro. I did, I failed again. It's over. You text your buddy, it's over,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what are some other struggles? I know I was listening to a few of your interviews in preparation for this, and one of them, like that you kind of threw out there, was standing. When I go to my non-denominational church, I got a nice bar, some snacks, some coffee. I drop my kids off at nursery. Don't got to worry about them. And then I get we have some really comfy seats at the non-denominational church I attend, and you go there, and it's kind of like it's easier for me, maybe like people like us who enjoy the theology, especially of listening to a sermon. It's kind of like listening to a YouTube video, like it's engaging. um Whereas in Orthodoxy, not saying it's the liturgy is not engaging, but going from that to now you're standing, you have really no idea what's going on. It's a lot to learn. um it's hard. Like it's not, and maybe this is bad to say, but like at least at first, it's not as enjoyable of an experience. Like you have to get used to it.
Mhm.
Have you had any of those struggles?
Oh, for sure. So, one of the best advice I got before I even made the announcement video was that at the very beginning, the very wise priest from Thessalonica that reached out, and I don't want to give his name 'cause he says he doesn't like the internet too much, but he wanted to reach out and give me some advice. And he said to me, he said, Ben, you're going to experience an explosion of grace at the very beginning, explosion of grace at the very beginning. And then that will fade away. And then you will be left in a kind of spiritual desert for a time. But this is normal and this happens to everyone. And it is for the formation of your soul. Um, and it's necessary. It builds humility. It makes it so that you have to rely on the church. It makes it so that you have to rely on Christ. But this happens to everyone, and that's true. Um, the differences within the evangelical circles, within Protestant circles, there are a lot of band-aids and masks that are often used as a kind of pseudo replacement for what is actually spiritual consolation, which in some cases you may not have. Um, and I'd say in most cases you probably don't have within the Protestant context. But you have a lot of masks and band-aids that kind of slap over it that can kind of be a pseudo imitation of spiritual peace. Some of those things can be um, an emotional high from close relationships. Perhaps you've made a lot of friends in the church and you talk to somebody and you have a spiritual conversation with them, and that gives you a good feeling and you feel like, okay, we're on the same page. This person's going through the same things I am. That feels good. This is a good friendship. I'm not getting that outside of the church. This is unique. This must be a spiritual experience. This is kind of the band-aid that goes over kind of spiritual darkness or whatever. Not to say that it's like, oh, you're in a dark place, but just like, it is an emotional imitation of actual gift of consolation. Another example would be perhaps the sermon, because the way that people preach in a Protestant context is very people focused. From the mind of a
Yeah.
pastor, I want to give you a message from God. The way that I do that is I read the scripture, I find out something that would be applicable to somebody's life, and I want to give it in such a way that it is just vague enough where somebody in this room is going to take something away. So I might, if I'm reading from James 1, it's talking about count it all joy. You go through trials of many kinds for, persevering in the faith, et cetera, et cetera. Basically sanctifies you. I'm paraphrasing. But, I'll say something along the lines of like, suffering leads to sanctification. This is necessary. Count it joy because all of these things in the earth will pass away. Your suffering is a gift if you let it be a gift. Not that Christ is causing it, but he turns things that are difficult in your life into something that is useful and beautiful and molds you and makes you more like him. And then somebody in the pew is like, dang, I just lost my job. He's talking directly to me. This is a message directly to me. suffering's a pretty universal concept, right? It's not necessarily like, you know, super rare somebody in the people going to be suffering. So,
Yeah.
oh, this is like, what are the chances? Like, I just went through this thing, but the sermon, you're not being intentionally like duplicitous, but this is the mindset. You want to give them something that is from God.
Yeah.
And I think maybe subconsciously you kind of know if you're overly specific, it's not going to really land with anybody. So it is kind of vague, but it's mostly focused on you. In the Orthodox worship service, it's not focused on you at all. You're there to sacrifice. You're there to be a living sacrifice. You're there to sacrifice your time. You're there to sacrifice your comfort. You're there to sacrifice your mental faculties. There is nothing there that is going to rub your back. There is nothing there that is going to lull you to sleep. There is nothing there that is going to act as a spiritual band-aid. There ain't no band-aids in there. That's surgery, dude. You're there to get operated on. So you're very aware of your spiritual state when you're standing there for 2.5 hours listening to divine liturgy. You are super aware of your spiritual state. It's kind of where you need to be, though. So when
Yeah.
you're actually in a good place, somewhat, you've received some level of theosis, it is a little more apparent. And your spiritual father could tell you whether or not you're in delusion. So you have those safeguards as well. But you don't have all these things that are tricking you and lulling you into a state of complacency. Like, for instance, somebody might go out the night before, they get, or maybe not the night before, maybe the week before. Let's say they get blackout drunk and they slap their girlfriend or something. And then they go to church and they're listening to Hillsong, they're listening to like, oh, Oceans is playing, it's so beautiful. That's kind of a straw man, kind of stupid example. But let's just say this, okay? Person just smacked his girlfriend in the face, got blackout drunk. It was completely his fault. Spent their money. Now their family's in a bad spot. Obviously, big sin, bad sins. Okay. What kind of spiritual state do you think that guy really is in at that point? I mean, obviously there are other factors, but we're just giving a short example. He comes to the church, okay, Protestant church. Pastor says, you know, we're preaching on Paul. Paul is walking to Damascus. He was a murderer. This guy was a murderer. He had every intent of slaughtering every single Christian that he came across. But this guy had an encounter with the living God. The scales from his eyes fell, and he realized in that moment that everything that he had done before that was completely in opposition to God. He might have had some truth, but he was acting in complete opposition to God. The worst sinner. This guy was persecutor of Christ, and even he could be saved by the grace of God because he repented, and he repented in his heart. So if you're here in the pews, repent in your heart, you could receive the grace of God, and you are forgiven right then and there. Join me in saying this prayer, and you're forgiven. Guy closes his eyes, he prays, he goes home. Dang, dude, I'm feeling pretty, I've got the spirit in me right now. He just gave me that speech. I said my little prayer. I go home. I feel good, at least for that Sunday. I feel like I'm in a spiritually pretty good place. That guy's spiritual state is trash, dude. That guy's probably going to go to hell if he doesn't change the way that he's living. It's dangerous. It's a band-aid. So I feel like often what a lot of people think of is like, you get this mindset of like, I'm not getting anything from the service. Sometimes the stuff you're getting from the service is stuff that's leading you directly to hell because it's lulling you to sleep and making you complacent. Like, I always felt really, really good at my Protestant church. I always felt really, really good. That's not the case in Orthodoxy. It's a struggle. Like, you're fighting to live the Christian life. You're struggling. It is a war. It's not a, feel good kind of like lull you to sleep thing. So I don't know. I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. I think that was wonderful. I think that's exactly what people should hear. And it's, I mean, I was a Calvinist for a long time. Calvinists are kind of hard in that respect of most of them don't want the feel good church. They understand the caricature of the American Protestant church and they want to fight against it. Maybe they don't do a great job at doing it, but they want to fight against it. And so I think that for a Calvinist, especially, hearing that is kind of like, yeah, actually, that is what I want. Um, and so I agree. And it's apparent. I mean, I've been to liturgy only maybe 5 or 6 times, but especially, bringing all 3 of my boys, usually going by myself. My wife's come a couple times, but having, my 3 boys, 4 to 8 years old, that's a fun experience too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, I go with my nieces most of the time. So it's me, my daughter, and 3 of her cousins there. So
yeah.
we call them nieces. They're really her cousins.
And then, one more thing that we both share, I heard you say this before we get out of here. You actually were talking about just standing in general during liturgy. I guess you got some, you said degenerative discs in your back?
Yeah. I have spinal arthritis, degenerative disc
Oh,
disease.
does that cause, like, sciatica as well?
No, it's in my upper back. So it's in between my
Ah,
shoulder blades.
gotcha. I pitched a double header when I was 15 and threw out my back, herniated my disc, and everybody told me it was like, "You're too young for this, you'll heal." It just never did. It was like,
Yeah, yeah.
20 years ago now. And, 15 years. And, man, yeah, I feel you on that. Back pain is, insane, and just standing for that long, like, I'm fine. I do, do 15,000 steps a day at my job, but just standing there for 2 hours is, can be rough.
Yeah, it definitely can be. When yeah, you probably seen that interview that I did, or maybe one of them. But I mean, I don't know. It's all a sacrifice. And for those that have genuine like handicaps, disabilities, they have like seating usually along the edge. But I'm not
Yeah.
going to take some yaya
No.
seat. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'll sit there. I'll suffer. I'll sit there and suffer to the point where I want to throw up. I'm hurting. But
Yeah.
that was at the Russian Orthodox church that I was attending. My church now actually does have some seating, so
Yeah.
we
There's
we
still a
get we
lot of
get
standing
breaks. We
though.
still stand for the majority of the service, but we get some
Yeah.
breaks.
That's cool.
So.
Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you. Is there anything that's coming up that you want to shout out?
Yeah, I have an interesting interview on the 18th with Father Damick from Ancient Faith, so that'll be interesting if people want to ask him questions. I know he had a little bit of a back and forth with Jay, so that might be an interesting interview. I actually asked Jay, I said, "Do you think I should do this still?" And he was like, "Yeah, just go ahead and do it. But who cares? Like, just whatever."
Yeah.
So I got the Jay blessing, but so I'll have him on. It's probably going to be pretty tame. I don't want to make it like some like scandal thing or something like that. I've got Father Seraphim Holland coming on Friday. So that'll be cool. So it's Father Damick Thursday, Father Seraphim Holland will be on Friday. And then I've got on the 31st, is that right? 31st or 30th? Let me see. On the 30th, I've got Father Panayotis, who runs and operates Trisagian Films. So that'll be interesting.
Nice. Those are awesome. I watched a bunch of those.
Yeah, those are
Um,
sweet.
yeah, there's another guy too. I watched when he did about the father in the desert with the skull. It's an animated film.
Oh, Harmony?
Harmony. Yeah,
He
that's
was
really good one too.
one of the guys from Harmony was at the Supra, actually. So it's kind of interesting. I didn't get a chance to chat with him too much though.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Go subscribe to Cleave if you haven't yet. I look forward to doing more stuff with you and following your journey into Orthodoxy, man. Thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
man. I'll keep you in the prayers. Hopefully, soon
Same.
you'll announce I'm an Orthodox catechumen. My whole
That's cool.
family. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I have authority over my kids, so that'll happen, but I've got to woo the wife.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man. Reach out
Oh,
whenever.
you're right.
Good to see you.
Yeah. You too, man.